Okay, so we're live. Hello, everyone. Lovely to see you all again on a.
Hi there.
Just hello, everyone that's watching as well. Great to have you again. Nice to see you again on a lovely Thursday. Hope it's a lovely day wherever you're watching from. I'm Zoe Harrison. I'm a creative producer here at 1854 Media, and I'm very excited for this week's episode because this week we have the series winners of OpenWalls Arles 2020. So we have Gregg Segal up there. So we'll say hello while we're saying it. And we have Osceola Refetoff, so hello. And we have Andrei Farcasanu, is that correct? Please forgive me if my pronunciation isn't correct. And then we also have the founder and director of Galerie Huit Arles as well, Julia de Bierre. So hello, Julia.
Great to have you. Hi, Zoe. Hi, everybody.
So OpenWalls Arles is currently up in the fantastic Galerie Huit exhibition space in Arles, which is being curated absolutely beautifully. For those of you who haven't seen the exhibition, or for those of you who haven't looked at our wonderful winners, have a look at the OpenWalls website. You're in for a treat going through the work. We'll go into a little bit more detail about that later on, but as always, there'll be a Q&A at the end. And if you're a member, you should be able to see a comment box below if you're watching on the 1854 Presents website. And if you're watching on Facebook, say hello. Know where you're watching from. We love to see. We love to have a chat with you all. And we'll get through as many questions as we can at the end. As always, keep up with upcoming events and awards and anything you want to know. 1854, sign up to our newsletter. There should be a box below as well if you're watching on the website. And if you miss a live stream, this, along with all of our other videos, will be on the archive on the 1854 Presents website. So if you fancy a binge this weekend, it's a great place to go. But apart from that, hello everyone. It's great to have you here. And once again, huge congratulations to the three of you on your win on the series. All three absolutely fantastic series, and I'm absolutely delighted to have you. I'm also just going to let everyone know who's watching that Julia and Andrei are in Arles at the minute. Andrei, I believe are you sat in front of your work?
Yes, that's true.
It looks great.
My work.
Yes, so but just a little warning is that people in Arles, the internet can have a little bit of a dodgy spot. So if there's a little bit of a patchy area, just give us a little bit of patience on this one. But besides that, hello everyone. Wonderful to have you all here. So let's have a look. So Andrei, you're in the exhibition space at the minute, as we've just said. And have you had a chance to have a look at all the work yet?
Sorry?
Have you had a chance to have a look at the exhibition space and see all the work up on the walls?
Yes, of course. It's a selection of very nice and different works, actually.
Is there anything?
Sorry?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I was just saying that it's a nice mix of works and different type of photography and different techniques and well, different views about life in general. So it's a very nice exhibition and very complete, let's say.
And are there any particular of the singles image winners? Because of course we also have a wide selection of single images. Are there any that in particular that kind of stand out to you from having a look?
Well, all of them, they're single images, and they're choose like single images. They are all very strong and powerful images, each one in their own. And what I like is that it's not only in black and white photography, but also color photography. So it's again a mixed selection of themes and motifs also.
I'm devastated that I couldn't get down there. It must be fabulous. Should we talk a little bit about your work actually?
Sure, of course.
I'm going to just share my screen and show everyone some of your work. Let me just, why is it not letting me do that? One moment. So actually, while I'm getting this up, can you tell me a little bit about your approach to this work and how you kind of went about creating it?
Okay, so it's a small selection of, it's a series actually, a selection of a body of work that is called Timeless Intervention, which is an ongoing project or ongoing body of work, like all my series actually. And well, for the moment, I didn't close any body of work, so it's like ongoing, and just keep adding photos to that. And I usually select, like I do small selections with some photos, and depending on the context, let's say, I put them together, because I always like to build stories with more than one photos. And this one in particular, the big umbrella bit, the timeless intervention, it's about time, obviously, like the name says, but it's about a specific, not the time in general, but a specific idea about time, which is how we refer to time with the people, the human, or how we experience the time, because there are different ways. Well, from all lessons still today, time is actually an abstract notion. It's not something that you can put the finger on. It's more like what you understand from what is this time thing. So obviously that's very subjective, and people react to it differently. So it was studied since always how exactly do we see time, or we perceive time. And like a lot of philosophers, because the selection actually takes more like on a philosophical way of how we perceive time. And most of or a lot of philosophers to time, like 5th century with Saint Augustine, just like a Christian philosopher. He was the first one to theorize the time as not as a past, present, and future, like somehow we see it today, but more like a continuous sum of presence. And that was also like later looked into it by more modern, not only philosophers, it was also Einstein who looked into it. It was Kant also, well, a philosopher. It was Jung, another like Oriental philosopher. It was both Western and Oriental, and they all got to this conclusion. Let's say that we perceive time actually through the moment of experiencing it. So to put it simple, it's a sum of presence, because it's only the moment when we perceive it. It will be like you want to go in a dark room with a flashlight, and whatever you put the flashlight on, that's the only thing that you perceive is from that room. That's the present, will be the present in this case. So it's kind of like an investigation in this into what time means for people, for humans. And well, of course, it kind of like scratches the ideas like memory, because time is related to memory. And also, what I like to it is that it actually challenges somehow the idea of the concept of photography itself, the photography, because photography in general is perceived as something that passed already, because we use photography for memories, we use for remembering stuff, we have the family albums, and we have. But in my case, my series actually challenges that, because through this series, to this body of work, I'm kind of showing like ongoing photography. So it has its own pace. It has its own time, not either past, either future, but it's kind of like continuously present photographs.
So, and I don't know whether you mentioned it earlier, but we've been talking about it before, is the way that your photographs are shown like small scale and printed in quite a particular way, aren't they? And is there a reason for that?
Yes, it is. It is. Well, let's start from the beginning. For me, photograph has two very big components. Let's say one it's I like to call it actually that the photograph has a soul and the body. So the soul it would be represented by the image itself and by what it comes with it, like the aesthetics of it and the concept of it, which is kind of like a bidimensional component, and then it has the body itself, which is represented by the photograph cell phone paper or whatever other support, but I use paper. And part of giving a body to a photograph, it's also the size, it's also the technique that I use it. So I like to make it more, let's say, real for people, so you can actually see the photograph in our reality, right? in what we call reality. And the size is very important too, because I think every image has a specific size that it goes well with it. And also all of this together goes back and help the first component, the conceptual image. So in the end, I think seeing it on a screen or seeing it printed on a specific size and a specific technique and specific texture that I use, so for each one, it makes a big difference, and actually it gives it more like it makes the viewer to be more connected with it. And the size also, it's important because being very poetic images and very subtle, I would say, being very small actually makes the viewer to come closer. And that's also very important because it's another layer of the interaction of the viewer with these photographs.
And I've seen actually a lot of people describing your work as kind of, or comparing them to poems. And I think I've seen it. When I was reading a few articles about it today, I've seen multiple people that were describing it as poems, and I was just wondering, how do you know when this is finished, when the work is finished? How do you know when it's the last, well, let's say the last, you know, if we're being very pretentious about it, the last, you know, photographic sentence in the poem?
Well, as a photographic practice, personal photographic practice, I don't chase the subjects, you know, but instead I do the other way around. I just let myself well, I soak myself into reality, let's say, and then what I perceive at the moment, it comes to me, and that's it. When for example, I press the button and I do a photo, and I start preparing the photograph, because it's not, as I was saying before, it's not a finished photograph if it is not printed. So it's more like it's not a very fixed process, you know. I don't go out and I say, now I have this photo and it will be this poetic or that poetic or different, or say that or this. It's more like an everyday experience, no? And it's more like a personal journey of finding what is the fabric of life, let's say.
Okay, great. So, Osceola, should we talk about your work as well?
Sure.
Let me, so again, whilst I'm getting these pictures up, do you want to tell me a little bit about how this project started? I'm sure a lot of people, also I'm sure most people watching are familiar with all of your work, because from it being shared across, you know, our platform and then several other platforms. So while I'm getting these pictures up, can you just tell me a little bit about how you started this project?
Sure. First, I'd like to start with thanking everyone, particularly the BJP and the Galerie Huit, for this great opportunity to get my work out to more people. And that's, I think, at the center of what OpenWalls Arles is conceived as an opportunity to give photographers a platform for people to get to know their work. So thank you for that. And in particular, thank you to Julia for a beautiful installation. I also regret not being able to see it this year, but it looks really fantastic. And I thought it was absolutely inspiring the way that, in particular, the in situ installation of my work in what Julia described to me as a rock room. And so that was super cool. So as far as the project itself, I live in Los Angeles, and when I started the project a little bit over a decade ago, I used to travel very often to a place called Mammoth Mountain, which is a ski resort. I'm a big fan of skiing and snowboarding, and the journey up there is one of the most beautiful drives in America. It is along a place called the Eastern Sierra, below the tallest mountain in California. And I went hundreds of times, and during the course of those journeys, I would stop at these abandoned structures that sort of drew my attention. And I would visit them repeatedly, the same ones over the course of time. And sometimes I would camp out the night before so that I could take photographs at dawn. And I really came to sort of become familiar with these individual houses as if they were a series of old friends. And that made me think about who else had been in the houses, in particular the people who had lived there. And one of the things about the series that I don't think is immediately apparent is, for me, it's really a lot about not only the structures and the backgrounds, but also the people. And you don't see the people, but to me, it's really a story about the people that aren't there, the people that are absent, and what their lives might have been like. And that's what I reflect on when I got there. And I also do a project on the Los Angeles's public television station called KCET, called High and Dry. And that's a project I do with a writer called Christopher Langley. And together we travel around California, and we're interested in the California desert, in its history, geology, and the people who live there. And so I'm often reflecting about what these spaces mean, what we can learn about ourselves from looking at these structures that we abandoned, and the kind of lifestyle that we've chosen here, particularly in the US, where we have so much open territory, that people often just walk away from a building in a way that you can't in a more densely populated area. This summer, I'm taking a seminar with a class at the University of California, Berkeley, and we've been talking mostly about, well, the class is about the West and sort of the mythology of the West that people around the world know about, cowboys and Indians and all that stuff. And we've been talking in particular about the Indians and how this land has a history that is much untold. But mostly the class is sort of, and my photographs, I think, really address the idea of how present reality reflects the mythology of the West that really never existed.
I think from that description of your work, I don't know how shocked or surprised people will be with knowing that you have a background in film from NYU. Actually, Greg, you do as well, quite strangely, quite coincidentally. That's right. I was just wondering, Osceola, how does film influence your work, and how does it influence this project in particular?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say that first, when I was coming up, my primary interest was movies, particularly the big mise-en-scène directors, people like Jean-Pierre Melville, or more commonly known people like Orson Welles, and how they structured their vision, how they created compositions in depth, and how they told stories using the language of cinema. And I think cinematic is a term that's largely overused. But when I say that the photographs have a cinematic aspect to them, I think what I'm trying to do with these photographs is to tell a story in each one of them, and to create that story in a series of layers. And really, like I was saying before, I think the story is about the people who were there before. And I'm hoping that people will be drawn into the images and think about, what kind of lives these people had and what caused them to abandon those lives. It can be tough living in the desert. So I think that my film background encourages me to try to pack as much information into each image, and to really try to tell a story with each image. And then in a series of images, you have the opportunity, more like a movie, to tell a story through a series of different images.
Mm-hmm. And also, all of these images, am I right in saying they were all created in camera?
That is correct. And people often wonder, I think we live in a world where image manipulation has become increasingly easy to do. Mm-hmm. And I have no issue with people using Photoshop in a variety of creative ways. But I think many people who have looked at this work have immediately assumed that the backgrounds are somehow dropped in. And it's not so much that I don't think that's something that people should do if they wanted to, but in my case, the backgrounds are really just what's there. In particular, when you're looking straight at an image like this, I'm not even making a choice about what I'm showing you left and right. You're looking straight on into these images. And as our president said recently, it is what it is in the background. And so I think for me, it's really important that, that the reality, I just people to know that that is really what's out there, and that the backgrounds relate to the foregrounds in that way.
Mm-hmm. It was beautiful work, as is, you know, I was one of those people that was really surprised by the fact that these were shot like in camera. I had fully was thinking that these would be the windows had been photoshopped in. So
not only that, I don't get busy with graffiti either. My process is very opportunistic, and I think one of the things that that's interesting in this series is several of these photos, like this photograph is was taken of the same room, I think, in the photograph before, but this is like a year later. It's the one with the, keep going. Let's see.
oh, hang on,
Of course, it's the last one.
Mm.
Oh, I don't think it's in that series. All right, well, many of these are oh, there it is.
It's
so
that.
Here in the same room, sorry, and then you see the sink there. And then in the photo that will come up eventually with It's a Mess Without You, the sink has been removed. And the one big photograph that's a panorama, that building collapsed shortly after I took that photograph. But the other photograph that's the vertical with the sort of green wall, that's also the same building, maybe a couple years before.
green wall. Let me have a look and see. Can I? Is
So-
this no?
Nope,
Nope. Nearly there. This one?
keep going. Oh, there we go. Yep.
Nope. That one.
Yep. So that one is the same as the really widescreen one. And then that building collapsed, like I said, in around 2016.
Mm-hmm.
But here you see it with the walls still intact. And in the later photograph, the walls are gone. And I just, so part of the process was sort of showing how the buildings are sort of falling apart in front of our eyes. And also sort of, I guess, the time span that we sort of experience and as humans versus the millions of years that those mountains have been there.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that both you and Andrei have created work very, you know, surrounding the themes of time, especially at a time when time doesn't really seem to be working fully as it should be. And it's interesting to look at projects like this whenever 5 minutes feels like 30 seconds and 3 days at the same. I've said time so many times in the past 30 seconds, but you understand what I'm saying. So, Greg, should we talk about your work?
Sure.
Great. So a pretty similar question to the other two. So, so what inspired you to start making this work?
Well, this project on kids and food called Daily Bread started with an earlier piece I did called 7 Days of Garbage. And I actually asked friends and family and neighbors and anyone I could convince to save their garbage for a week and then lie down in it and be photographed. And I'm shooting from above, looking down, so you can clearly see all of the garbage. And you know what struck me about people's garbage was the amount of packaging in the trash. And you know, it wasn't so much the smelly stuff that bothered me. It was the packaging. And it struck me that a lot of that packaging is a byproduct of the food that we eat. And so I started to wonder, you know, how is this revolution really in the way that food is produced and consumed, how is that impacting our diets? Mm. And so I decided to ask kids, and I focused on kids because, you know, eating habits start when we're young and you know, they last a lifetime. And so I would ask kids to keep a journal of everything that they ate for 1 week. And then at the end of the week, I would collect the journals and then with the help of several cooks, reproduce all of those meals, you know, exactly and precisely as much as possible. So yeah, so it was a challenge to reproduce all of that food.
I'm sure. And is there a reason why you shot it in particular from this side? Because I think a lot of your work is shot from above.
Well, I mean, this perspective allows us to see, you know, this bird's eye view allows us to see and grasp very quickly all of the foods that that were eaten in the course of a week. I mean, if you were to shoot it from a, you know, from another angle, you wouldn't really be able to look closely at everything the way you can with these photos.
Mm-hmm. And the other question, another question I have for you is, you know, there's clearly some great personalities that you're photographing here. Like I'm looking at, you know, from all the kids that we're looking at here. Was there anyone in particular, maybe they're in this, you know, in these selection of images, maybe they're not, but that they are, that kind of stood out to you as a subject?
Well, I mean, in a more general way, I would say that I was surprised that the best and most nutritional diets are not always eaten by the richest, but by the poorest around the world. And so, you know, in the U.S., of course, the poor are generally the biggest consumers of junk food because it's, you know, fast food, because it's readily accessible and it's affordable. But in, you know, in Mumbai, India, it costs $13 for a medium Domino's pizza, which is, you know, way beyond the means of most people. And so there's a girl here that I photographed outside Mumbai, Anshal. I don't know if you want to pull her picture. Yeah, here she is. So Anshal lives in a 8 by 8 foot aluminum hut on the outskirts of Mumbai. And her dad makes less than $5 a day. So, you know, you'd have to work 3 days to get a Domino's pizza. But, you know, Anshal actually has a pretty wholesome and nutritious diet. She's eating, you know, fresh okra and cauliflower curries and lentils, which are really healthy. And her mother gets on the floor of their hut and makes the roti by hand rather than buying it from a package. And so it was kind of remarkable to me to see this family who is you know, dirt poor, and yet their diets were better than a lot of the middle class kids in India. I don't know if you have a picture of another of the Indian kids I photographed.
Just tell me when to stop.
I think this, I don't know if it's in this group, but anyway, you know, you see more of the Domino's pizzas and the Kentucky Fried Chicken and so forth. So.
It's, and you know, I think you also made, so you've made the project about the 7 days of garbage. You've made, you also made, is it no, not daily bread, or is it?
Yeah, that was a piece that I did with the UN in Colombia. And we photographed Venezuelan refugees with the food that they ate in the course of their journey from Venezuela to Bogota, and also the things that they carried with them on their journey. And so I just call that undaily bread because there was very little food that they had to eat during that time. So I don't think there are any of those photos here to share, though, are there?
No, sorry, I didn't get any up. I just thought it would be interesting for those that are watching to have a look whenever we're finished having our chat here. But the other question is, you know, as we've mentioned a couple of times, you created the project about garbage, and you know, it's basically, and this work is obviously about how much people consume. Is sustainability or consumption a driving force in your work?
Well, sure, yeah, and I think, you know, I'm talking not only about food in these pictures, but I'm also talking about, as I mentioned, the byproduct of the foods we eat, the packaging. And so, you know, it's refreshing to see kids who are eating mostly whole foods, you know, that are homemade, and it's pleasing to the eye not to see all of that junk, all that packaging, and it's also, you know, easy on the environment too. You know, so the more that we're preparing our own meals from whole foods, the less waste we're generating, and so which brings me back, of course, to the garbage project I did. And this photo of Kawakani here, this is Kawakani, and she lives on the Xingu National Preserve, which is an area of the Amazon that's protected, or at least it was protected from encroaching cattle farming and deforestation. Things have changed a lot in the last couple of years, as you probably know, but again, it's just very pleasing to the eye to see, to not see, you know, cartons of food and plastic packaging and so forth. This is a stark contrast, obviously, with this boy that you're showing now. But yeah, with Kawakani, she said to me, you know, whenever you're hungry, you just go to the river with your net, you know. So she would catch the fish, and she would wrap the fish in a kind of cassava pancake, which is her kind of daily bread. It's the white little pancakes.
Another absolutely fantastic project. Julia, are you there? Can you hear us? Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you perfectly, Zoe.
Fantastic. I would just, I think we just have a couple of questions for you. I'll bring us back onto the full screen so everyone can see our mugs while we're speaking. I was just wondering, what was it that drew you in particular to these 3 series?
Well, obviously, I wasn't the only person making the choices.
Of course.
And we really had some outstanding work. But these 3 series, they all stood out in their particular ways. So Andrei, you know, all these different things that you can do with photography. So Andrei basically making, as we talked about earlier, poetry, and then, you know, his method of printing. And I don't know if everybody's aware, but in fact, we did all the printing here in Arles, except for Andrei's work. And he sent his work, and luckily for him, he lives in Barcelona. So, you know, obviously, if he'd been living in the States, he would not have been able to send it because we were making the exhibition during the lockdown. And then, well, Gregg's work, you know, just so strong in the message. And I have to say, of course, I noticed that there were 3 Malaysians in there, and I know everything about what Malaysian kids eat. So I knew that, you know, everything in his photographs are really, really well researched, and obviously visually just amazing. And then Osceola's work, you know, when we do the judging, we don't know anything about the, you know, we're just looking at the images and the text. And, you know, I was aware that he, you know, there's a very filmic, I know that he, did he say earlier that doesn't want to mention too much about the film? But it is, you know, the way that it's installed down in the rock rooms, you feel, everybody is saying it feels like you're just sort of stepping into a film. And there's a lot of, it's static, but at the same time, there's a lot of movement going on in there. Because as Osceola said, you know, you can, you know, you're kind of witnessing the buildings breaking down around you, the abandoned dreams. The other thing that I'd like to say is that these 3 series, they all had a very strong narrative, very strong construction. Because some of the series that one sees, there's less of a, you know, it's a lot of photographs, but sort of stitched together, but not necessarily as well thought out as these 3.
No, absolutely fantastic work. You know, how did you find? Actually, should we bring up a few?
Hi, Zoe.
Hello. Can you hear me all right, Julia?
Hi, Zoe.
Hello.
Suddenly not hearing.
Oh no. Well, whilst we're
Zoe.
Hello.
Hi there. Sorry, I warned everybody.
Yes, I did, and I let everyone know. I let you all
right.
know.
Thank you.
No problem. Again, thank you for our patience with this. Arles is an absolutely fantastic venue for a photographic exhibition, and I'm sure it probably people can concentrate more due to the lack of internet, or not lack of internet, but to the internet connection. But Julia, shall we have a look through some of the curation of the work in situ?
Sorry, Zoe.
Shall I bring up some photographs from the exhibition so we can show people?
By all means.
Yeah. So whilst I'm let me get these up now. So how did you find the curation?
So the curation was quite a challenge because it was during lockdown, and here in Arles that lasted 2.5 months. So we were wondering, you know, whether we could actually get the printing done in time, whether we could get the framing done, whether there'd be the materials. It was fantastic working with the British Journal of Photography, and fantastic working with all the photographers who got the, you know, files in on time. Fantastic working with these 3 series winners, and we made it. Now, the thing about curating anything at the Galerie Huit is that we have very different spaces, so there are constraints, and you know, most artists seem to actually enjoy the constraints because it's also part of the fun of being in Arles. We're not, you know, it's not about being in a big white cube, it's being in about historical buildings and making those historical buildings live through photography. There was, you know, there's the work that's in the Grand Salon, and then there's the work in the entrance, and the Batik room obviously was crying out for Gregg's work. And then Osceola, who's down in the vaults. So hanging the work, obviously I was so lucky to find wonderful Adrian, who had finished his master's at the École Nationale de la Photo, and he hung it all. And I was just, you know, he was absolutely fantastic and worked around the clock, never looked at his watch. And thank you guys also for having such trust in me. Osceola in particular, who, as you're all aware, you know, he prints his work on fine art paper and is extremely diligent, and he trusted me to do something completely different. Now, it's a shame that nobody can be here, but some of the photographers are making their way down, and we're overwhelmed with visitors. So every day they're leaving comments. So this is just an example of a comment that somebody left this evening. Puissant, troublant, humain, merci. So powerful, troubling, human. Thank you. Any other questions?
I think that's, you know, if that's kind of as good as you can get from a response to a photography exhibition response. So that's brilliant to hear. And I also have to say, from having worked with you all, and if anyone else is watching that is one of the single image winners, it has been an absolute joy to work with you and to see all of your fantastic images, and also Julia, to see them come to life in such a fantastic setting. I was actually going to ask you about how the visitors have been receiving it. You mentioned about some really good responses there. So, and you were saying that a couple of people managed to get down.
Yes. Shall I mention?
I mean, maybe not. I'm not sure how much people are happy with sharing where they are. But we've also, another thing important to note for those of you who haven't been keeping up to date is that the exhibition's actually been extended, hasn't it?
So we're extending it until the 27th of September, because in fact, what happened with Arles this year is, as you know, when the Rencontre was cancelled, a group of us gallerists and just independent arts people here in Arles, we all federated and we created Arles Contemporain, which is a sort of fantastic spontaneous arts festival. That finishes on the 5th of September. And then there's another festival which opens called Été Indien, so Indian summer. This will be its 4th year. And the theme this year is manger, eat. So it's made for Gregg's work. And I just thought it was a shame not to participate also in that festival, and there'll be a different crowd of people coming into Arles, and they'll see, you know, they'll continue to see this fantastic exhibition.
Fantastic. And if anyone watching is able to, I know that I think in the UK certainly that there's issues getting to France, but if anyone watching is in France or is able to get down to Arles, do certainly go down, for my sake anyway, because I absolutely wish that I could get down. But yeah, I have a couple more questions for all of you actually at chat. So how's the response been for everyone? You know, each of you, your work being in the gallery. Sorry?
I think the internet had a. I didn't hear the question.
Oh, sorry. Was that my internet?
Sorry.
It's been a day of technical difficulties. So have you been getting, the three of you, have you been getting good response from people seeing your work in the space?
I've been getting a lot of response from people around the world, which is exciting. And it really puts in perspective like the difference. I mean, if it had been a different year, we would all be in Arles together, looking at the work in real life, which is, I think, a very essential part of photography, that photography does do okay on the internet, I would say, compared to different kinds of art, but particularly subtle kinds of work, the kind that maybe Andrei does particularly, you really need to get out there and see. But I would say that despite the fact that, you know, the 150,000, or I don't know how many thousands of people that show up in Arles every summer to see photography, I think that people are at home and looking at more work online. And I would encourage people that are, you know, watching to take a look at these different bodies of work. I'm a big fan of both Gregg's work and Andrei's, and both their websites are, you know, fantastic to explore. And also Flossie Skelton wrote you know, individual bio pieces about everyone's work on BJP. And particularly, I could say for myself, she did just a wonderful job of sort of defining and bringing the series of work I did to life. So I'd encourage people to check that out.
Mm-hmm. She has been fantastic at writing up everyone's work. So yeah, do take a look at it this evening. And also, again, you are the 3 series winners. We also have a large number of single image winners, which I must say, I think I said at the start, if you have, you know, 20 minutes, half an hour, do go on to the OpenWalls website and have a look through the images. They are an absolutely incredible collection of images, and they just gel so well together. It's absolutely fantastic. And as I said, I had the pleasure of having working through them and having a look at them and talking with the artists. So do have a look this evening.
You can show too? Is that what I heard, Zoe? Did you say that you have a piece in the exhibit?
No, I do not.
Oh,
no. No, I've just been speaking with all you wonderful artists, and I've had the pleasure of, you know, not only seeing all the work, but having, you know, talking to you all, and it's been an absolute joy. I
agree with what Osceola was saying, that it's a pity that we are not all together here for this. And it's nice to see the photographs online. If you can, please come to Arles and see the photos live, because besides the curatorial work, which is good, it's also the scale that the photos are with the gallery and with the house. It's beautiful. They're perfect you know, frame, let's say, into the gallery and the house, and in all the spaces where each one it's exhibited. Mm-hmm. So it's even a more dimension. That's what, unfortunately, this year will some of the people will miss it because, well, the impossibility to travel to Arles. Mm-hmm. But if you are around or close, do visit the exhibition.
Mm-hmm. I think, you know, we had a look at some of the images of the work in situ, and it seems it adds a completely other dimension to the work in such an incredible way. Like Julia, you've done, I don't need to, I've told you so many times already, I'm going to tell you again, you've done such a fantastic job. It is absolutely beautiful. And the work.
Well, Zoe, we're so lucky also to have one of Europe's finest printers who just happens to be here in Arles, Sungi Lee. So, you know, he did all the printing, of course, other than Andrei's work. And you know, people have really picked up on that, on the fantastic printing. And then the other surprising thing this year is, you know, we didn't really expect to see many people, but there've been days when we've actually had to close the doors because there've been so many people in the gallery. And you know, mostly obviously from France, a lot of Parisians, but a lot of people from the neighboring European countries. And a lot of people who normally come for the rencontre who have missed Arles and have decided to come anyway, and have been really pleasantly surprised to see that, you know, there is photography to be seen here, and fantastic photography.
And it's great. It's so great to hear. It's so great to hear that there's so many people enjoying the work, even though some of us are, unfortunately. I'm hoping that luckily, because the exhibition's been extended, that I'll be able to get down at some point.
Absolutely, Zoe, we're waiting for you. Andrei and I are just about to open a bottle of something bubbly.
Oh, lovely.
And we'll celebrate.
You know, we'll keep a bottle for you guys.
Thank you. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Movie, right, that you made. I saw a video that you created, Julia, that does a really good job of showing what the experience of being in Arles is. I've never been myself, but you, I think I'll share it on my social media. But
please do.
The exhibition is just fantastic. It really starts with an overview of this historic city, this Roman city, and then you come into this 17th century, you know, palatial looking house into these rooms that are, you know, sort of unique. And I'm a big fan of the way that, you know, not showing it in a white box. So I would encourage people to check that out as well.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been, as I said, I've said it so many times, but it's been an absolute pleasure. And I've just had a look at the time, and I think we're going to have to leave it there, everybody. I'm so sorry, everyone that's watching, that I could talk to you all night, but unfortunately it is time differences, and we have a selected slot. But thank you, Gregg, Osceola, Andrei and Julia, for joining me this evening. It has been an absolute pleasure, and thank you to everyone watching who's been joining us again for 1854 Presents. It's also been a pleasure to have you. So join us all again next week. Well, not us all, but join me again for the new guests next week. And if you're just joining us towards the end here, don't panic. I'll be putting this up on the archive this evening, and you can watch it from the start then. But besides that, good night, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Bye.